All right, we have 30 lines of CSS to put in. Look on the screen, please. We want to convert this. See it? That's the way yours looks now. After we put the CSS in, look on the screen. It's going to convert that to this. Again, that to this. 30 lines of CSS. All right, there it is. Please take 5 minutes or so and type this in. When you get down to line 15, I'll move it up so you can see the rest. You have to create a new file, make a new folder for your project called CSS. In that new folder, make a file called style.css. That's where this goes.
Can you type it out and then save it as that?
Yes. But to make sure you type it out in a new file. Don't put it in your HTML file. Pardon me? Yes, it is. You could call that anything you want. A lot of times people just call it submit. Okay, well we'll take a look then. Make sure that in your HTML you spelled validate. You said ID equal validate for it. All right, you spelled it correctly. Otherwise, we'll take a look at it in just a bit. I had 2 people yesterday in my afternoon class who typed in everything. We were doing an exercise kind of like this, but with 11 people, 8 of them worked just fine, not a problem. The other 2, no. And then another person stopped working, so we had 7 out of 10. 2 of those people I was able to help. 2 minutes later, boom, worked just fine. The other guy, everything he did was correct. Didn't work at all. He's like, why? And he's one of the brightest people in the class. He's like, I followed your instructions exactly. Why didn't it work? And I said, you know, I always give this kind of an analogy, but it's like, you know, you drive into a auto mechanic because your car is making a weird noise, but the car's not making the noise. So you walk in and you go, hey, my car is going like this. What does that mean? It's like, I don't know. Well, the same kind of thing. I didn't watch him type the stuff in, so I don't know what he did. I have absolutely no idea. What's that?
I'm done.
You got all this up to here? That's everything else. That's all of it. Tried to keep the CSS down to a bare minimum. So you said on yours that's the only thing that's not working? Okay. Okay. So what we're going to do is now, after you get done with this, we're going to go back to the chapter. When they say something that's in the chapter that we haven't talked about, I'm going to come in and manually add it to the form. Does that make sense? So it'll look different when we get all done. This actually is one of the longer chapters in the book. And with either of you, if you get done and it's not working or it doesn't look right, we'll look at it after the lecture. I just want to make sure we've got time to go over the lecture, and ideally we'll get done with the lecture around 10 to 10:30, but I want you to have at least an hour today of lab. All right. Tomorrow as mentioned by Maya. Okay, the next chapter is very short. It's how to add audio and video. So maybe we'll see if we can do that one and chapter 15, which are working with fonts and printing. And then Thursday again we'll be in St. Louis. Friday we'll do chapter 16. The rest of the period will be lab. All right? Do you have all this now, Maya? Did you save it and run it? Does yours look okay? Okay. All right. But again, ideally, this is what we're going to want to have happen. All right. So let's start going over the chapter that's in the book. When we get done, I'll just put the code up there, and then you can go take a look at it. That's fine. This is really goofy software that they gave me. I used to just be able to bring the book up. Now look at what I've got to do. It comes up in another language. See that?
So style.css has to be in a different folder?
It should. Style.css has to be in a CSS folder. Like I said, we'll look at it in a bit. I don't want this. They keep updating the software. That's like they do it every single time I come in here. It's been updated, and then the old one doesn't work, and that's why it shows it to me in another language. I've already done this. You know. All right, we're on chapter 13, page 447, working with forms. It's about a 50-page long chapter. Look on the screen here. You already know how to create a form. You know how to put in buttons. You know how to put in text fields. You know how to put in radio buttons and checkboxes. We'll look at drop-downs because we didn't do it yet. We'll look at list boxes because we didn't do it yet. We'll look at text areas because we didn't do it yet. We've done labels. All right, we'll talk about grouping with Fieldsets. We didn't do that. How to align controls. Guess what? That was your CSS, right? So you know how to do the alignment. We'll talk about validation, and you'll be like, wait a minute, that's all you got to do? Okay, because much of it is pretty simple. There's also some new HTML5 controls. and we'll look at those. All right. So a form has controls. I mean, I don't know any way to say it that's simpler than that. A form is made up of controls. So if you look on the screen here, this ID is the way that you're going to refer to the form in JavaScript or client-side code. All right. Now, I also had you put in a name for most of those. The name would be what you use if you're working with server-side code. We don't do that this semester. But I just wanted you to get used to. Almost always the ID and the name are the same thing. Almost always. Action, we already talked about. That's the file that you want to have come up when you submit the form. Method I talked about, get or post. Talked about, showed you the difference. All right, you know what target equals underscore blank, you already know what that means. All right, some input elements, type equals. Again, type equal text. The ID, the name, you can disable something. Why would you maybe want to disable something? All right, maybe until somebody has logged in, you don't want to make buying information available to them. Does that make sense? So you have in a form, they can buy things, but they have to log in with an account first or create a new account. Okay, why? Because when they go to their account, they'll do things like have a credit card. All right? And read-only is just that. So look on the screen, please. If we look at this, form ID equal email form. It's just the name of the form. Action equals, so that means when you click this button, it's going to go to this file. Does that make sense? We don't write those files this semester. We don't do it next semester. We do it the following semester. Okay? This is client side. It's everything based on you. All right? Now, you may or may not have noticed this, but I want to show you this. It's kind of important, I guess. So let's go back. And in this thing that we've got right here, 111-22-3333. Oops. Jeff, Scott, 755 Parr Road, Wentzville, Missouri, not Maine, Missouri, here we go, 63385. Cell phone, let's just put it in mind, 314-286-3675. Male, over 50. I want all of them. I want to get healthy. I want to lose weight. I want to add muscle tone. Now, please look up on the screen. Since we use get, I want you to look at what comes up here. See this? Oh, it's not even posting. That's interesting. Okay. It should have come up in here because we use get. Let's see if the clear works. That ain't working either. All right. We'll have to look. Oh, this is the wrong file. That's why. This is the one that we used. Okay. There. Now let me try it. 111-22-3333. Now, if it still doesn't show, then I goofed something up, but we'll fix it. All right, submit. It's not showing. Why aren't those showing? All right, we'll have to look at that. I don't know what's wrong with it. All right. If you put in this code here, you get this. That makes sense? That's about as simple a form as you can put in. Just asks you for your email. Okay? All right. So a form has controls on it. You use the ID attribute to give each control its own unique name. All right? you put in buttons when you want the form to go somewhere. You can have buttons do whatever you want them to do. Literally, whatever you want them or need them to do. So if you look right here on the one that we created, all right, what we said right here was, again, the name was validate, the ID was validate, all right, the value is submit, it was a button, all right. Buttons have to have a type of button. In fact, I'll change that. You guys can change these too, okay? Go back to your HTML, please. Where it's got here type equal button, make that submit. And where it's got here type equal button, make that clear. So change that to submit, change that to clear. So make the type submit for the first button and the type clear for the second button. Okay, now look. I'll go right back to it, but now look. 111223333. That was my fault. Jeff Scott 755R Road, Wentzville.
They made my clear into a text box.
Then you've got something typed in wrong, because it will not do that. Oh, it did mine too. Then we both did something wrong. So we'll fix it. 50, do it. All right. All right, let's fix that. Might have to be type button. Didn't think it was, but it might be. All right, so you see all this stuff that's in here now? Now let's see what happens when I click submit. See all that? It's all up here. Can you see it? It's all up in my get. And it automatically cleared the form. That's called it posted the form back to itself. That's why the stuff isn't there. I wanted to see something though. Yes. Yes. We're going to have the server collected and stored into a database. Yes. And we'll be able to fill this up based on what's in the database. Yes.
So basically, it's the same thing that
Yes, you will, and you'll be able to validate, etc., and do all that kind of stuff. Yes. All right. So here they've got 4 buttons. They're showing you how you can create different buttons. Oh, that's it. Maya,
Yeah.
on this, don't use the word clear. Make that reset. Okay.
So the input type instead of clear is reset.
Yes, make it reset.
So okay,
That's submit, and that's reset.
okay.
Submit
So
and reset.
Your last three say clear under the reset?
Because this is what we're naming it here, these two, and this is what is on the button where you say value equals. Watch now. Look, now it's important. See where it says where I put the social security number is? Now notice what happens when I click clear. Oh, you pig.
The clear button works, but it went down the hole.
See that? And I probably, rather than clear, I probably should have called it reset. Okay?
Well, I like clear better.
Well, whatever you want. It doesn't matter. That's just the text you put on there. Here's some buttons. Not only that, notice here when you put buttons in here, you can play with them with CSS. You can even make image buttons. This is hard to see, but see that right there? That's a little shopping cart. And I showed you this before, but no, it would be probably some kind of an icon. See this? They are transitioning over. It used to just have a button here for Amazon that said cart. Then now it's got a picture of a shopping cart with how many things you've got in there, and it says cart. What we will do when we go through this in fall of next year is you'll make it first where it'll just say cart. Then we'll say, you'll know what it is. We'll just make a button that looks like a shopping cart. So you'll learn how to do both.
When they do it that way, like if you add items and improve it, like,
Yes.
is there like some sort of calculator element within that?
There is some code in there that adds. So if I do, if I come back in here and I say, oh, wow, look at that, Keto answers. And yeah, I want that one too. So, see that? It's just an accumulator. And now if I come back in there and I go to the checkout and I say, I'd have to log back in. I don't want to do that right now. I have to switch accounts from where I am. Okay. But the point is, if I go back and do that, there's a remove button in there. So if I go to remove, that'll go down to 1. Right? All that stuff is handled, literally handled with about 3 or 4 lines of code. All right. Okay. So you can create different types of buttons. Submit button is designed to send something, send your information to something. Reset is designed to clear things out. All right, why I said clear, I have no idea, but I did. All right, so here's what you can put in text fields. So let's add some of this stuff. You don't have to do this, but you can. Okay, so for instance, let's say that the first name can only be 25 characters long or less. Are you with me? Okay. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to come in where I've got the first name, just so I can add some of these, just so you can see them. So I want to find my first name. There it is. All right. And I'm going to say here, max length equal 25. Okay. Now, please look up on the screen. Kind of important here. Now, watch. So here's my first name. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5. See that? It's not moving. It's kind of hard to tell because it is 25 characters. But it's not typing anymore. I have made the length of that field 25 characters by using max length. All right, so again, how did I do that? I went here, and for the first name, I just added down at the bottom, max length equal 25. No. But if it's like a credit card, most credit cards are 16 characters. No, but if you do that, they can't put in more than 60. If they, for some reason, they tried to, you wouldn't let them. No, you can't put in anything. You get 25 characters, period. That's all you get.
So what if you were to set that up for a credit card and you put it for 16? You were to put the spaces in between.
No, it wouldn't work then. Now notice, just so you see this, I'm going to make it 10, just so you see it. I want it to be 25, but I'm going to make it 10 just for a second. All right, now I refresh. Now look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I want to keep typing. See that? I can't. So I have made it, that is the maximum length. Again, you typically, with a name, 25 or something like that. It doesn't have to be that number. All right. Now, notice in here I've got this. You don't put this in because it's going to make it look funky. But I'm going to type in here size equal 100. Don't do this. It's going to make it look funky. But I added size equal 100. Why? Look on the screen. Is that pretty obvious what it did? Yeah. So if let's say I had a field that was longer, I could do that if I wanted to. Now that looks really ugly. You can all see that. And you almost never need to use size, but that's what that does. All right. What else is in here? Autofocus and placeholder. Well, look on the screen again. I'm going to say here. I'm going to type in right here. Placeholder equals enter first name. Look on the screen again. Is that pretty obvious what went in there? Some people today don't use labels anymore. Did you hear me? They don't use these labels anymore. They just use this. placeholder text. Also notice when I put my mouse there, and as soon as I start to type, J, see how it goes away? I remove it, and it comes back again. All right, so that's placeholder text. They give you some examples right here, but it's everything we just looked at. You can make fields password fields. Did you ever type in something in the password field, you get the black dots? All right, because it doesn't want to show it out, in case somebody's looking at your screen. You can also take a field and make it a hidden field. If you make a field a hidden field, it doesn't show on the form. It's there, but it doesn't show on the form. Radio buttons, checkboxes, we looked at. If you want more than I gave you, well, let's assume that let's go down to the radio buttons. All right, I'm going down to the radio buttons. And let's assume that, let's just pretend, for lack of better words, we know 75% of the people who are doing this are female. Okay? 25% are male, 75% are female. I'm just going to put in the word checked. Oops, not there. So right at the bottom here, I'm going to type in checked. C-K-E-D. Checked. Just checked. Now notice what happens when I run this. Nothing's there, right? But when I refresh, see how it automatically puts the dot there? I can still change it to male, but by default, it's female. Okay? You used to have to say, and it'll still work, you used to have to say checked equal checked. You used to have to do it like that. But they figured that was kind of stupid that you'd have to type in all that. So they changed it from checked equal checked to just checked. If I knew that the age of most of the people at this place was 31 to 50, I could do the same thing. Checked. And again, now look. Now by default, they're females 31 to 50. Okay? You don't have to do that. The nice thing, just so you know this, the nice thing about making one of these checked is now one is always checked. See what I'm saying? And you come in there, Keegan comes in, I'm a male, and I'm 16 to 30. You still can recheck those, but there is something always checked when you set the checked attribute. So again, I can do the same thing for the state. Let's assume that we know that 99% of the people are going to have that. We're going to look at how to do that in just a minute.
Well, instead of that happening, like how it had Alabama first, initially to do the placeholders.
Yeah. Yes. We'll look at that. We'll look at that too. All right. So we haven't gotten there yet, but we will as soon as we get there. All right. All right. So only one radio button at a time. Check boxes are unrelated, so you can have as many as you need. Next is a drop-down list. Guess what? You use that. That was for states. All right. So when you look right here, you can even break it down into areas. This is, I don't know why, but almost always when people do this, it's for a pizza company. It always is. So here's a New York pizza. Do you want a 10, a 12, or etc.? So they're breaking them down. So let's go back into what you talked about. All right, let's do two things in here. Let's go where the states are. Okay? And I'm going to just grab a first one. I'm just going to copy this. And instead of Alabama, I'm not going to put in here any value. I'm just going to leave it double quote, double quote. And I'm going to say here, please select a state. All right, now I'm going to go back and run it again. And look what I've got. Okay? I still have all my states in here. Sometimes people like to do that. Sometimes they don't. So please look on the screen. Now I'm going to get rid of it. Why? I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to go down to Missouri, right there. And I'm going to type in here, I think it's selected. We're going to find out right now. All right. So I'm going to run this again. See how it's Missouri?
Are they able to do that based off of like your devices that they use?
Can you? Sure. You could program that in.
Yeah. You just gotta, cause whenever you go on a website or something, like search something, you say, like, it always pops up like.
Yeah. But the thing is, that's assuming that you're an honest person. That's not a joke. But with a lot of people, they spoof. They don't want people to know where they're coming from. So they bounce stuff all over the world. So what it can do is it can check out what's called your IP address, and it can find out where it thinks that currently is. But you can spoof it. Right now, I don't know how to do this, but I've got a friend who is a security guy. He could make it seem like he was in France right now, even if he was right next to you. All right? But yes, you can do that. It would require some programming, but yes. And again, you all know this. We could have made this countries instead of states, right? USA, South America, etc. We could have done that had we wanted to do that. All right? All right, list boxes. Big thing with list boxes, look on the screen. I'm not going to do these. You can make them so by default they're single select. You can only select one. But you can set them to multi-select where you can select. I mean, for a pizza, wouldn't that make sense?
Yeah.
And you don't have to do them in order with a multi-select. So I can hold down on shift, click on sausage. I don't want mushrooms, but I want onions. So I hold on and select, and I can select whatever I want. All right? I don't tend to use list boxes a lot. There's nothing wrong with them, but I just think the other ones are much more versatile. Now, do you ever fill out a form for a doctor's office or something, and on the bottom they might have something like interests, and they give you a box because they want to know, the doctor wants to know, for example, if you do zip lining all the time, they might think, oh, good, I'm going to have a lot of business from you, type of thing, you know what I'm saying? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to the bottom of this, and right before my buttons, now it's probably going to look funny because I won't have any CSS on it, okay? But right before those buttons, I'm going to come in here. Again, I'm right before the buttons, and I'm going to put in here input type equal, in fact, it's not an input, I'm sorry, text area, and I'm going to put rows equals, I don't know, I'm just making this up, 10, cols equal 10, and then I'm going to end my text area. Put a couple line breaks in here, and let's grab from where we had the, where is that? Let me grab a label. So you can see what I put in here. I'm going to call this comments, and I'll put here comments. All right. So what did I just add? Is that pretty obvious? See this? I just added this box. Now, there aren't very many columns in there, so you couldn't write very well. So I'd probably change the columns to like 100. And you'll notice that when I do that, so now you can write comments in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's a text area. That's usually what it's used for. So they show you in the book how to create one. Rows and columns, you can make it automatically word wrap for you if you want to. So notice what they have here. All right, so I just showed it to you. Labels we already talked about. The for I mentioned. If you say for equals, this is more for people who are sight impaired. They can click right on the label and it'll go right to where they have to enter stuff. All right. How to group stuff with field sets. Kind of a good one. Let's see. So it's field set legend. All right. So look on the screen if you would, please. I've decided that what I want is everything that's first name, last name, address, city, state, and zip code. I want these fields right there to be by themselves. Look on the screen. See that? Okay. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do this. Right before the first name field. There we go. So right before the first name field, okay, right there, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to type in legend. You'll see what that means in just a second. Underneath that, I'm going to put field set. In fact, I think I did it backwards. I think that's field set. And this will be legend. And I'm going to put in here name and address info. I spelled legend wrong. All right, and then way at the bottom, so right after my zip code, so way down here, city, state, zip. So right after zip, right there, in there, I'm going to end my field set. What did that do? Does that make sense? Now you look at it, it's way too wide. You know, it doesn't. I can go in with CSS and I can change that.
Did you ever change like the bottom part to filter the cell phone one?
So it's what? So there's some space there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just would have to add some margin or padding down at the bottom. But I can change the width of this, etc. Again, I realize I'm making it ugly, but I'm just trying to show you the different things that are in here in the chapter. So again, they show you in here. Notice they've got two. So there's two different field sets. One that's got crust type, one that's got topping. As it says, it's used to group controls. All right. File upload, I'm not going to show you that one. You ever seen this where it says choose a file? What's cool about this is when you do it, notice where it says accept here. This says the only types of files that you'll accept are JPEGs and GIFs. So in other words, if you told somebody you wanted them to upload a file about themselves, let's say it has to be a text file, you could put .txt in there and it wouldn't take anything else. All right, but that makes by putting that in there, that gives you the file upload control, which is that one.
So they have that on the business and somebody, they have that, but they have that set like every file.
It depends. Normally, if you don't put anything in there for the accept, it'll take anything. All right, because otherwise what you're doing is you're filtering. All right, aligning controls. This is what we just did. So if you don't like the way I aligned them, you could take a look, Maya, you too, you could look at the CSS here that's on page 469. Again, if you don't think I lined them up very nicely, you could play with that. All right. Formatting controls, notice what they've done here. What did they do? They made the label a different color here, but look here, this is the key one. They're saying when the input has the focus, do this. So I'm going to grab that code just so you see it. Oops. Copy it. I know it gets real ugly when I do copies, but if I go to the CSS here and bring in that input focus, I'll just use the color they use. It's ugly, but that's fine. All right, input focus. Now notice that when I run this and I click, see what happened? See that? But notice if I click in here, still blue, but when I click in here, it's not, because that's not type equals. See that? But now, sometimes people use this because when stuff doesn't work, they want that field to light up. Okay? And let's talk about that one. I'm jumping ahead a little, but I'm going to come in here. Let's assume that when you do this, you have to enter in a first name and a last name. You have to, no matter what. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go by the first name field here. And at the end, I'm going to put in the word, oops, geez. I'm going to put in the word required. So I've got the word required here. All right. I'm going to put it there, and I'm going to put it by the last name field. All right. Why it's doing what it's doing, but it's being weird. Now, notice when I run this, what happens. Okay, I'm leaving the first name field not filled in, and I'm going to click the button. All right, it shouldn't take anything. In other words, if I come in here and I don't put in something that's required, I'll typically get a little bubble message that says required field. In fact, I'll show it here in the book, I'm sure. All right, tab order. What's a tab order? It's the order that stuff gets pushed in when you put it in the tab. Now look on the screen. I just want you to see this. The tab order is set by default. Notice, tab, 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 tab. And it pretty much is the order I want, isn't it? See that? That's pretty good. But look now. Still looks pretty good. Okay? The problem is, if I come in and I add fields, now if I add a new field in here, it might screw up the tab order. A lot of people like to take tab when they're moving around the screen. They're just used to doing it. So you can set the tab order if you want. Access keys, do you ever see that? See that underscore by the F? That means if you hold Alt F, it'll move you right to that field.
I didn't know that.
All right. The new HTML5 features, these are cool. Some of these I've shown you. Required, I already showed you. Autocomplete. Do you ever do this where you start to fill out a form? So I come in here, notice Jeff. All right. If I say autocomplete equals true, then what's going to happen is after I fill the form out once, it'll remember the values I used and it'll fill them in again for me. Sometimes people like that. Sometimes they hate it.
It freaked me out the first time that Google did that to me. It was like my entire name, email, address.
All right. So that's what you get for the required. Please fill out this field. All right. Regular expressions. I want you to go out to a website. I just want you to see this. You will hear about this in all 4 classes you take. All right, but just so you see the site, ugly as hell, it's type in regular hyphen expressions dot info. Regular hyphen expressions dot info. Ugly site, everything you want to know about regular expressions. What's a regular expression? What if somebody had said to me, okay, Jeff, I want you to go through the United States Constitution, and I want you to know how many times in there the word rights, R-I-G-H-T-S, is used. I could use a regular expression. I could tell it to search just for that term. So with regular expressions, it's a way for you to search. Years ago, good, bad, indifferent doesn't matter, but we're in a more politically correct world right now. And in a lot of books, people have gone through where they put he, they changed it to they, or where it said he, now it says he hyphen she or she hyphen he. You can do all that stuff with regular expressions. So here's some, okay. You will have to know this, so I'm going to give you a very simple website I want you to go out to, because this is all that it involves. Let's assume we're going to keep it real simple. Could you please, both please, type in open up a new browser window, type in HTML5 pattern.com. HTML5 pattern.com, and it'll look like this. Who cares? Well, postal codes. See this right here where it says postal codes? That's what you do for an American postal code. What does that mean? That means 5 digits, Then there's a set of parentheses, which means optional. So you can have 5 digits or 5 digits, a hyphen, and 4 digits. See that? Now notice if I put in 5 digits, it'll say everything's cool, it worked. But if I put in 5 digits and a hyphen, it'll say it didn't match the format. If I put in 4 numbers, now it worked. But if I change it and I put in 5 numbers, it doesn't work. See that? So that's a zip code. And the other one that's pretty big here is for a phone number. All right? And there's different ways that you can do a phone number, just so you know. This is the most common one. It's a USA phone number, 111-111 or 2-3333. See that? And it worked. You may be asked on your last test for this to validate a regular expression for a phone number and validate a regular expression for a zip code. All you have to do is go out to HTML5 pattern and you put in those patterns. That's it. So notice here's where they put in the pattern. See this? Phone, pattern equal. So we could put that in. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go down in what we've been working on here. I'm going to find cell phone. There it is. Right before the end here, I'm going to put that in. Pattern equals. I got to get rid of all this garbage that copied over with it. See that? Yes? Makes sense? Must be my phone going off. I don't know. All right. All right. Well, I always check because my wife is going through some health stuff, and if it's from her, I would get it. Other than that, I let it go. I don't care who it is. All right. So that's that. So that's patterns. A data list. This is kind of cool. Like it or not, most people are kind of lazy. So if I put in here, what is your preferred search engine? You could come in here and you could change this, and it would show a list. It would show Google, Yahoo, Bing, etc. right there. And if you chose Google, it would bring up that. If you chose Yahoo, it would bring up that. Make sense? All right. Some people like that. Now, this is how it's done in Chrome. IE is still a little behind, so it looks uglier. They don't have the drop down. See that? You don't have the arrow. That might not even be true anymore. I don't know. Okay. Now, here's some I did not show you, such as, okay, when we put in email before in our form, when we put in email, wherever the heck that is, did we do in the email?
No.
All right. So we don't have an email in here. Let's put one in. Let's put it in right before cell phone. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my cell phone.
I don't even know that one.
I'm going to find that cell phone that's right here. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard, and I'm going to put it in right up above where it is. All right, but I'm going to change it now from cell phone to email. So everywhere that's in here, I'm going to put in email. Email address. This will say email. I won't have any pattern. It's very hard to write a pattern for an email. This will be email. This will be email. Please look on the screen because this is new. See this? Don't say text. Type in email right there. That'll check to make sure there is an @ sign and it ends with dot something. See what I'm saying? Because if I don't put that in, if I leave it as text, so if I leave it like that as text, there's my new email. If I leave it like that and I just put in hello, it'll take it. But if I put in hello and I try to submit it, Well, now, because we made this required, so Jeff, Scott, I think those are the only two we made required. But now let's see with hello in there what that says. See that?
Hello is missing his at.
Yeah, all it says is, was it formatted correctly? So I can write, for example, 1@2.com, which probably isn't valid, but it took it. It doesn't. There's no way you can check to say, does somebody have that email address? It just said, is it formatted correctly? That's all that does. All right. For the phone number, what we should have said here, look at the phone number. Not type equal text, type equal tell. And I don't even have to ask. I would put a week's pay that both of you at one time or another on your phones in your life went to some site where it came up and it showed you the number and it said, click here to dial this for you, basically, type of thing. You know what I'm talking about?
I do that on
You can do that with tell. Now, what you might find out with tell, for a long time when you put in tell, IE didn't support it. It had no idea what that was. But notice now everything's green. So that should come up. If you put it on a browser, it'll put it up where you can call it automatically. All right? Which is pretty much what you'd want. You also want to make it, if, for instance, what if it was a link in your resume that you had online? You'd want somebody to be able to call you right away. You know what I'm saying? Without them having to dial. You just want to make life as good as possible for people. All right. When you've got numbers, let's say I put in here salary. And let's say the salary had to be between $20,000 and $1 million. All right, I'm just making those numbers up. So I could set the min to $20,000, the max to $100,000 if I wanted to do that. All right, if you do it like this, you have to literally add a little bit of JavaScript code in here. All right, we're not going to talk anymore about that now. We'll hit back on it later. Date and time. Those are kind of nice because you could. This is called a date time picker. You ever gone out and tried to do like for maybe a automobile company or something, set up a service appointment?
Yeah.
And you click and you get something like that?
Yeah.
Right. It's easier for them because harder for you to screw it up. Okay. Search. You want to add your own search box. Again, we don't do much of that now, but we will be getting into it later. Color. Brings up a color palette. That's all you got to do to bring up a color palette is to put in this. Type equal color. Give it an ID, and that gives it an initial value. When you click on here, it brings this up. So if I asked you your favorite color, that'd be one way of doing it. You could select whatever you wanted for your favorite color. All right. The 4 we already talked about. Progress and meter, you ever see these? You know, help us reach our goal. And it shows that you're at 80%. You know what I'm talking about? I know every year they always collect stuff in Lake St. Louis where I live, and they always have a big sandwich sign outside that says the percentage we're at our goal. You know, and it goes up hopefully all the time. Well, this is the same kind of thing, but you do it online. All right, finally they have a web page that actually does validation. This is really good. See this? It's got an entire website. You're going to do something like this. So 494 has got the picture. 497 has got the HTML. And 499 has got the CSS. When you do your last regular test, you will be asked to do this. If you go to that page, it'll have everything basically that you need in there. All right? So, I didn't print it out, but I will do a, it's been a while, but I will go back and do a study guide for you. Let's just take a minute here. it's doing that, but it is. Let's see. All right, so move up here. 17. All right, so we are up to chapter 13 here on our Halloween layout. All right, so create a page that uses a form. This is what you're going to create. See that? It's actually probably simpler than the stuff we did in class. Shape up is going to be very similar. All right, so you're going to do that. Questions? All right. The rest of the period is yours by a week from Friday. I want you to both hear this. So by Friday the 25th, anything you're turning in for this part of the book has to be in. Does that make sense? I'm not going to make you turn in anything for the rest of the chapters that we're going through. We're going to go through 14 and that'll be it. We're going to go do 15, 16. You don't have to do anything for those. All right, but all work through. Maya, did you hear that?
Yep.
Okay, because afterwards it's a 0. It stays a 0 in the book, so you have till the 25th. All right. So the rest of the period is yours.